guys?
You're doing well. Yep.
Well, thanks, guys. I got Ramon and Damon Williams here, two hot shooting guards from VMI back in the late 80s and early 90s. I first heard about these guys. I was at a UVA team camp, 1983 summer, and Salem was right down the hall with Richard Morgan. And they had a guy named Kevin Phipp. I don't know if you know Kevin.
Oh, yeah, good friend. Good friend with Kevin.
He kept talking about these twins. He said, yeah, there's these twins from Fleming. They're going to be really good. There's these twins from Fleming. That was the first time I ever heard about you guys. But anyway, welcome on. Glad to have you guys on.
No, appreciate you having us on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Oh, great. So, well, first I want to talk a little bit about, being a twin. And I know, and I was talking to the Coyer twins, and you guys, I sent you guys that video. They've heard all the twin questions over the years. And I think people are interested in twins because you have the same genes, but yet there's different outcomes. And they were fraternal twins. But one thing about you guys that was fascinating, and Keith verified this, Keith Jennings, Mr. Jennings, is you guys' stats, and you played so much alike. And then one year you guys, one guy would lead in scoring, the next year the other guy, and Keith said it was so tough. He says if one of them had 3 fouls, they could change jerseys in the locker room and no one would ever know the difference. Because there was no mannerisms or anything you could tell them apart.
You're right.
That's true.
Jennings is a great player. We had a great time competing against Keith. And the stories or the rumors always happen where if I had 3 fouls or they had 3 fouls, at the halftime we did switch jerseys, but we never did. The rumor has it that we have, so we'll leave it as rumors.
Exactly. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't.
Right. That's right. We always try to get to the referees first to try to say no, it wasn't me. So
yeah, exactly.
And half the time they didn't realize we were twins out there.
Yes, that's true. Right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little bit the benefits and the downfalls of having an identical twin. I mean, offhand, one thing that comes to mind is if you're a coach and has to have a team, you have 2 identical players you got to put into your lineup. So even though they're great players, it may change a little bit of the way you play, because not just one player, you have 2 players with identical strengths and weaknesses. And then, so that's a strength, but it's also a challenge. What are some of the other things that being a twin you benefited from, but also you may have been challenged by?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you, really, high school and college was a little bit different, I think, from a recruiting standpoint. In high school, Ramon pretty much ran point guard, and I was kind of a 2 guard. And that's kind of how the roles were. When Joe Cantafio and Jeff Snyder and his guys recruited us to VMI, it was reverse. So Cantafio said, Damon's the point guard and Ramon is kind of the shooting guard. So the roles reversed in that respect, but we never looked at it as a competing portion to that. We always felt ourselves complementing each other. So we always, if Ramon's doing well, I'm doing well. So we, I think you get the notion when you talk about twins and in that case been identical. A lot of people associate it as one, reference as one individual, but we are 2 different persons. But we, as you mentioned, we do share the skills and things alike. But I think for me, and I think I can speak for Ramon a little bit, what his success was, I benefited from it and never took any hard feelings or jealousy from it. I took it as his success is my success.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, growing up, we competed one-on-one early years. Once we got in probably junior high school, we had to stop because we got too intense where we're competing and we're challenging each other full court or whatever the case may be. Got too physical, too heated. So we had to stop it probably around, 14, 15 years old.
I think about
maybe high school.
Yeah, high school, freshman year of college, by the time we had to stop competing, playing one-on-one
amongst each other.
Amongst each other.
So, we always try to make each other better, but never, like Damon said, never took it to the point where there was any animosity if one played more than the other.
Right. Now, on the other hand, if one of you guys had a poor shooting night, a bad game, would it take away from the success of the one that had a good game? Because here you are, and I have 25, and Ramon just couldn't get it going that night. He may have 8. Did it ever reflect and bring the other guy down?
You know what? We always say, like, man, we can never get in the same point totals, like in the 20s. Like, man, all right, Damon may have scored 23 and I may have scored 17. And, vice versa may happen. We're like, man, we can't ever get it in. So we we didn't challenge ourselves, but we always thought like at the end of the game, like, man, you get 21, why can't I get 23? It was never in the 20s together or in the 30s together. It's always one a little more than the other, close. And then from time to time, we did score in the same, point totals as we did. But, like you said, his success was my success. There was a point in time our freshman year where I didn't play much coming in. I think I set the bench probably the first seven games. Didn't get off the bench. Don't play against UVA, and of course we knew Richard Morgan on the other side. And I maybe came in scrap time, last 30 seconds. Like, man, I can't get it going. But Damon played probably 10 to 12 minutes per game his freshman year. And we just kept working and we probably challenged ourselves in the gym that freshman year. And maybe that helped. Then we're talking about competing and going at each other. And for some reason, around by that seventh game, it kind of clicked. I just kept working. And all of a sudden I started, I think around my seventh or the eighth game, I started that game. Coach gave me a chance. I was shooting well in practice. Like, man, this kid is shooting it like crazy. All right, let's put him in lineup. And sure enough, first game had 16 points, and then I started from there on. But the challenge was I would come into the room and have not played 2 or 3 games straight, and like, man, am I good enough? We had those kind of questions. So it was interesting.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it wasn't that you weren't good enough. They just couldn't. 2 of you couldn't make the lineup. They kind of had to choose. Time. So,
right.
But anyway, let's go back to the Roanoke game. I think you guys might still be in Roanoke, but let's go back to the basketball roots. As you guys may know, we started out kind of chronicling the history of Northern Virginia basketball, and just talking to the old players, coaches, fans, and we started doing this on Facebook, and then Grant Hill heard what we were doing and said, "Look, I want to be a part of this." And he reached out and said, "Look, I want to be a part. I like what you guys are doing." And then Tommy Amaker did as well. And after that, we've been getting a lot of the big names that played. And then I realized I would love to talk to some of the other guys around the state as well. I talked to Bob Dandridge, I talked to George Lynch, recently talked to Doug Day, Bobby Stokes, Ricky Stokes, and many others. And one thing that I asked George, and I asked Doug. Doug's a little bit further away from Roanoke. He's more in the New River Valley. But one thing I asked them is, what is it about Roanoke? And to a certain extent, the other towns like Danville, they produce hard knocking basketball players, football players too. But what is it about those areas that produce so many good athletes and so many good teams? Not just Fleming, but I mean, one of the best high school teams I've ever seen is the Patrick Henry team in 1988. And you know those guys well. You played with Percy Covington in college. But what is it about the area that produces so much talent and so many good teams?
It's interesting. I think it's just kind of a hard work. We don't come from that beach area where talent level is so high and the recognition accolades you get a lot there in that area. Northern Virginia, you get DC accolades, blah, blah, blah. North Carolina, ACC country, you just accolades. Roanoke, kind of Southwest Virginia in his own area, hard work kind of guys. Maybe a lot of us didn't have a chance to go to the big camps coming up. We never attended, specific camps, not until I think going into our senior year. We went to 5-star camp one time out of all the years we've been playing, and maybe for the Lynches, those guys, AAU wasn't quite as big during our time, but again, I think it was just hard work guys working out in the parks, and a lot of us knew each other. We tried to find the talent, if Curtis Blair and Lynch we heard that they were at a certain park. Hey, next day we were trying to find them, like, where they at, and we want to compete against them. And then same thing with older guys. We competed with older guys that were in the area, Henry Beck and the Mark Wards. There were some Ward brothers that were older than us, that were talented. Again, stayed in the same area. Guys didn't leave to go elsewhere to play. We kind of stayed here in this area. Now, once AAU got kind of big, then that kind of happened because people recognized that the talent level here was pretty good, and you had some guys come out of here that did go to Bull Williams and some other places. and played outside of the area. But I think it's just hard work area, just a hard work type players.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think with, along with that, and how do we get exposed to college and universities coming our way? We had coaches, I think, that always tapped into their network of, hey, you got to come to Roanoke and check out these guys. Much of what Phipps was saying to you back in '83. So guys in key areas, we in a way, like a family, we looked out for each other. So, hey, you need to go to Roanoke. There's some talent there, and then we've been fortunate to be blessed with that, and others behind us. Not just only us, but those behind us kind of done well on the athletic field.
It's funny. It's interesting now that we're talking about this. Whenever I see Roanoke come up to, I was a UVA refereeing games, and Roanoke would always bring a tough AAU team. There was always a cop that was with you guys, a black guy. He was very involved in the basketball in the area. Do you remember that guy's name? Every time.
Joe Gaither?
Maybe that was him. He was always at the Stivers around. I understand he was a policeman in town, but he was always with the Roanoke teams when I'd see them up in UVA.
Probably Joe Gaither. Joe
Yeah.
Gaither, long time coach. We always looked at him as he was a father figure to a lot of guys in the area. And Inner City was the name of the organization that kind of the rec ball kind of scene. You went through that organization. If you're a good player, you went through that organization. For us, we competed against the organization. We a lot of good players. We said, you know what? Instead of joining them, we're going to compete against it. That's when we're going to get better, to compete against the competition. So that's kind of what our take was when we did that. And Joe Gaither was huge. Probably when we were 7, 8 years old, probably and on up. He's been around long and still is around.
Oh yeah, okay. He always had a great air about him. I'd always see him around. He could tell he carried himself with a lot of respect, and people treated him like that. But I always saw that guy.
Yeah. Household name.
Yeah, he was kind of like maybe a comparison, maybe Boo Williams of Roanoke. Right. Maybe quite that level, but that's kind of how he was. He knew all the players. He always joined them, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So I think I read somewhere that you guys had an older brother that kind of got you into basketball. That was a good player. Is that true?
Yes. Well, actually, it's 5 of us. It's 5 of them. Our oldest brother. We all play sports. My oldest brother competed on a high school level. My next oldest brother is more on the football side. My brother, it's about Joe's the oldest brother, Duncan, third oldest, and then my brother Greg, who's next to us, about 5 years older than we are. And so that's kind of how we all of us played basketball or football. Now my brother that kind of got us into the basketball side, he was a heck of a football player, starting off, and then he transitioned over to the basketball side, a super athlete. I still say it now, he's probably one of the best. I mean, he's better than we were, and we are, to be honest with you. Just a freak athlete. Had the opportunity to go to some college, major universities. Things didn't work out for him on some school level side, and so he had to play at Division III level. But his influence on the game, because he went to Oak Hill Academy. First time we ever heard of Oak Hill Academy. This was back in '81 or '82. Chris Washburn was coming to town at the time. They were number 5 in the country at that time, and so when we were, I think we were 14, 15 years old, we'll go down to Malthus Wilson and see the players, get guys from New York, Chicago, and that was just very intriguing. And we said, man, forget about this football stuff. I think this basketball might be where it needs to be, where we need to go. So that's how we got intrigued on the basketball side and kind of turned our talents to that.
Yeah. So who was your first role models, like NBA? Who did you guys try to play like? I know obviously you probably tried to play like your brother and maybe some of the guys you saw at Oak Hill or around town. Who were some of your other role models that you guys tried to emulate?
Well, I think some of the old school, I think when we were at the time, I guess we called it AAU at the time, we were playing in North Carolina. And I guess the talent down there, my brother's team, ahead of us, that they were, like 5 slamming, jamming, dunking the basketball, doing all kinds of things. And when we got to the floor, some of the folks there said, man, that guy, man, he was like Frank Green. I don't know if you remember Frankie Johnson. He played Wake Forest.
Oh, Frank Johnson played for the Bullets.
Probably way back then.
Yeah, I love Frank Johnson. Was one of my favorite players.
Yeah. So
he
when
had a jump shot, a real like funny jump shot.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Frankie Johnson. So the crowd was kind of, throwing some names out. And so I said, well, you know what? I looked at his game. I kind of like Frankie Johnson. And then as we got a little older, I think the duo at the Detroit Pistons with Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars were kind of those kind of our role models, because they were kind of a 1-2 punch at the time. And I think we kind of modeled that some. And so that's kind of my role model in that essence of the guard, the quickness, Thomas and Dumars.
You guys kind of remind me of Dumars. I could definitely see that. Well, my dad is from Bedford, so I have family all in the area. His brother had a church over in Christiansburg. My grandmother is from Bluefield, but that whole area is where's my family from. What were the dynamics of Roanoke growing up? So I know there was a high school called Andrew Lewis that had won state championship. They were really good. I think it closed sometime in the 70s. I think Patrick Henry was a place. What were the racial dynamics? So most of the Black students go to Fleming and Patrick Henry. I know North Side and Cave Springs were less diverse. Is that how
they were late. Those schools were later. Andrew Lewis was out of Salem, Virginia. In terms of Roanoke, Jefferson was Jefferson. Our oldest brother played at Jefferson, and that was the old high school until Fleming came about. And then most of the blacks went to William Fleming High School in that regard. And then PH and Fleming came about the same time, I believe, in terms of when the schools opened and the segregation, all that in that late early 70s there. And most of the blacks went to William Fleming. For us, the dynamics, our mom and dads were educators. Our mom was elementary school teacher, and my dad was a high school teacher and a principal down in the Shawsville area, Galax, down toward that area. And we found out later that he was the first African-American black coach in that area. One coach of the year, I believe, when he was there, early 70s, middle 70s. So, and my mom taught not necessarily at all black school. Wasena was an elementary school kind of on the Cave Spring side. So we went to school kind of, the tensions weren't as heavy as when we were coming up. We weren't that old. But in terms of where the blacks went to school at, it was William Fleming High School.
William Fleming High School, yeah. So, and how close were you guys? So, did you guys know all the Fleming? I mean, all the PH players like Lynch, Covington, all those guys. Even I forgot the guys that came before them. They had a lot of Pendleton. Were you guys all in the same parks and stuff, or were folks far enough away where you might not see them all the time?
No, I would say from a competitive standpoint, we knew each other on the courts. I mean, I think our time, outdoor courts is where it's at. You play ball from sun up to sundown, and so you stay on the court all day long. Made some good friends. Most of us from our generation, we all went to school in junior high school, and then when high school we split. Most of the guys that we really competed against heavily. We split, so we didn't go to the same high school, but we had enough where our junior high days, we had some very competitive play during our junior high, and I, record be known that we were not star players. We were cut as a seventh graders at the middle school. Didn't play any. My ninth grade year at that time, middle school was 7th through 9th. Ninth grade year. I don't think I got in maybe 4 games during that time frame. And really got in when it was scrap time, when it was last minute or so. That's the only time I got in the ball game. So it really wasn't until we kind of excelled from a basketball standpoint, sophomore, junior years in high school. But from competitive standpoint, we knew each other across town. Highly competitive, as William Fleming and PH. Schools battling on the athletic field, no matter what the sport was, but we had much respect. We had much respect for each other at our respective schools.
Well, that's kind of rare. Most ball players, that they always were good. They always were, better than a lot of their competitors. I mean, there are some that make moves during their trajectory goes way up. What was the difference? Why did you guys all of a sudden something click and you guys all of a sudden became excellent players and Division I prospects?
I think the work ethic, we really took kin to the game when our brother went to Oak Hill Academy, like Damon said, that once we saw that and like the excitement of it, we're like, sure, we're gonna work on our game. And probably between our 9th and 10th grade year, we kind of came about, played for the JV team in 10th grade and had really good teams in JV. And we had some really good players. I think you even mentioned some players in your notes, Trussell's and Rick Ramey's, those guys, we all challenged each other. And we just took that time. Someone would give us a key to the gym, took advantage of it, that extra time, and that 9th to 10th grade year really blossomed. I think we just took off. And then our junior year, we had a chance to go to the state, which you probably mentioned later, but we had a chance to go to the state and play with some really good players, Johns and Lawrence Saunders, and I mean, Buddy Johnson, those guys. You had older guys that made you work, didn't give you nothing, nothing. And then when we went to the parks, it just how it was. Our oldest brother would take us to the backyard, compete against him, beat us. And he said, if I beat you, you got to put your hand against that wall. And I got that basketball and throw that basketball hits on the backside. And then you talking about hurting him. So we did it and we could to make sure we were going to try to beat his butt. And finally, we got past that point. We put him against the wall. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about Burrall Paye. He was a coach at Fleming. Great record. I believe he's still coaching them, maybe. But what was he like as a coach? And what are some of the things you learned from him?
Well, I tell you, Coach Burrall Paye was a defensive genius. No, he has a few books. Matter of fact, a few books out on how to attack and implement the trapping defenses and so forth like that. And when I became a coach at some point in time, I reflected back and grabbed his book and reached out to him to how do I do this and so forth. But he was a very competitive coach. He's retired now, and I think he's a golfer. I think he's a Tennessee grad, so he goes back to Tennessee and visit his alma mater quite often in that gold. I mean, in the orange colors. So, but challenging. Really didn't put up with a lot of mess. He was straight to the point. Burrall was very intense. He had a look about him. Remind me a little bit of Gary Williams a little bit. With this vernacular of looking so mean and tough. Like, can we say anything to the coach, or
like he's going to explode?
Yeah, he's going to explode on you. So, but he was respectful of what our talents were. I think he tried to, like, again, we had athletic teams. I think he really took advantage of what the athleticism that we had and applied from a defense standpoint. I remember the Georgetown days of when Coach Thompson of the trapping defenses and running jumps and things like that. So that was the intensity we had with him, and that really, when we came into a gym to an opponent, we already intimidated them just by coming into the gym, just by way our vernacular of attacking the game.
When you say intimidate, would you intimidate a team like Patrick Henry? Would they be because they weren't quite there when you were in high school? They were 2 years away, but would they be intimidated by William Fleming the way you guys played?
I think it's a different intimidation, as in, no, we're intimidated right back. So it just because we're the only two high schools, Roanoke's the only two high schools were Fleming and Patrick Henry. And so that as far as city schools, only two high schools. So the outliers were the county schools, but there's no intimidation in that respect. But I think we try to intimidate each other that we're gonna go after it, and we're not gonna give you anything from that respect.
One more thing before we get to your junior year, because I want to talk about your run to state. Did you guys know, like Percy, George, Russell Turner, those guys are going to be very special? Could you tell in a couple of years they were going to be as good as they actually ended up being?
Yeah, matter of fact, when we were in college, we came back to see them play quite a few games back when they were in high school. Yeah. So we would come back, when we had time to come back and watch them play. The big game that we all talk about around here is when Patrick Henry played DeMatha here in Roanoke. Still to this day, the largest crowd that came to see a high school basketball game, close to 10,000. Wow. We hadn't had that type of crowd since. But PH ended up beating DeMatha, and those guys were phenomenal. We enjoyed coming back and watching those guys play when we were in college. Those guys probably didn't know that, but they know now. But we enjoyed coming back and watching guys play and supported in our own right, supported any Roanoke person that did well. We always try to support them.
Yeah. Well, you know, the unique thing about that, I think with that team and that squad, you know, when we were coming up, we didn't have size. You know, when we saw someone 6'4", well, man, that's a big kid, you know. But that particular team and that group, you know, Lynch is 6'8", Tuck Russell is 6'7", Melvin at 6'6". So they had size that we were never accustomed to, dreamed about having, you know, not only for myself want to be taller, but you know, but you usually saw that size, you know, on the east side, you know, when Morning and Jerry Reed and those guys down in the beach area, 6'9", 6'10", 6'11s. So we never saw that. So that was the uniqueness that particular group brought to the Roanoke area. Really definitely put us on the map as far as the talent. And you go back to what the talent came out of Roanoke, that really put the map, put us on the map and what this part of the state can do.
And I'm getting way ahead of myself now, but did you guys have a role in talking Percy Covington into coming to VMI?
We did. He was 2 years younger than we were, and we would come down. We knew VMI was recruiting Percy, obviously. So we would go to the games and try to catch him after the game. We knew his family, and I think mother went to the same church, Pilgrim Church, and we would see him. And man, what about VMI? I don't know, man. That military, that M, the M kind of struck a nerve in folks when they get nervous when they hear the military piece of it. And we just calmed his nerves and say, hey, in the end, when you get that degree, the degree means something. So that was part of the play, but also he was a heck of a point guard. We wanted a daggone good point guard. He was really, really good. And we were fortunate enough to I don't know if we convinced him. I think we certainly had a big play in him coming to VMI and also staying there. Because I think there were times when I don't know if I can do this. And, we talked to him and he stuck it out and he had a pretty good career. But yeah, we would come down and try to convince him, hey, this place to go. Hey, help us out, man.
Get to your junior year. That's the year you go all the way to state, which all basketball players dream about is getting to state. And it was interesting because I went to UVA. One of the reasons why I want to go there is every year the state tournament was there. The first year I am there, they moved the state tournament to James Madison. So all my buddies, we all got in the car, we all drove over. We were all from different parts of the state. Everyone liked the team where they were from. I think it was Hayfield or Lee. It was Lee from my area, and they ended up getting Petersburg beat them, and you guys played a great Booker T team. But before we get to that game, tell us a little bit about your junior year. And I know in the state program, I underlined the starting lineup. I don't think either one of you started at the state game. You both played. You didn't start. So tell us a little bit about that year.
Well, but that really tells you just how talented team that we had. Well, I guess Raymond, but both of us. But I was a sixth man off the bench. So when that time came, I came off the bench. I'm thinking averaging 12, maybe 10 to 12 minutes a game or something like that. Burrall Paye really wasn't a deep bench player. Maybe tops it off at 8 max. Maybe in foul trouble may bring somebody on far as 8th player, but he brought a 6 to 7 person lineup to how he ran his operation. And junior year, I tell you, we were fighting to get playing time. I mean, that, like you say, just how talented that group was, and with Johnson, a point guard, Lawrence Saunders. I tell you, we Trussell's, John,
Kevin
Johnson, and Saunders, right?
Guard there,
yeah.
You know what? It was one of those in practice. You had to. It was competing every day, and the second team challenging the first team was just as talented as the first. So I think that's why we were just as good as we were. Like I said, the bench was limited a little bit in terms of how many guys played. But by the time we came around to seniors, then we got all the playing time. But that junior year was such a learning experience, learning to come off the bench, respecting other guys' talent levels compared to your own. Hey, we got to work for what you have. Nothing was given. So those kind of things we learned during that junior year. And then the run to the state was just phenomenal. To us, it was the kind of one of those, I don't know, when you're a kid, sometimes you go through a phase where it's like a dream. You remember it,
Yeah.
but not so many of the details. You know, the later in years, like, you know what? Man, I wish I really kind of took my camera and did some more things to memorize it, because you didn't know what, you only get to the state very so often. I mean, you can hardly ever get back to the state, and just to experience it at one time. You know, obviously we didn't get back to our senior year, but to experience it was a heck of a daggone thing.
Yeah, and it goes back, from a coaching standpoint. Our dad was a coach and all, and I think our junior year, and I think he would tell us, understand your role. Understand your role. So that was a big part of what was our role in this game? How do we, I'm not gonna get upset, but no playing time. But once I got in there, I got to make every effort work to make my time worth of when I'm in there. So I think that year went 28-2, I believe, 28-1 going in, but 2 obviously lost to Booker T. Then we lost a team. I still remember that game up in West Virginia. Princeton's a non-conference game. Yeah. Princeton out of West Virginia, and we went into a fire going. I remember that was early in the season, and we said we're not going to lose no more games. I think we were as a player, we say we were competing against 7 or 7 players on the floor, to include the other guys who kind of go to Wilson, from referee standpoint. As I say that, just in hindsight, as the fun of this conversation, because I referee now, so I take that, I don't take it lightly.
Yeah. Well, Princeton is where UVA legend Jim Miller was from, and they had some great.
That's right.
They had some great teams there. Do you remember Booker T had 2 phenomenal guards, great CIAA guards, Lamont Walker and Darren Sanderlin. Darren Sanderlin is a coach at Kempsville High School. He coached Booker T himself and won a state as a coach. And I'm getting on a podcast coming up. Do you remember those guys at all? Sanderlin ended up winning the state championship game against Petersburg with a long range jumper at the buzzer.
At the buzzer. And then when we played against them, and I remember the scout report talking about the guards. Now I don't remember the names, but when you mentioned it, we knew the 2 guards were monsters, and they could defend, they could score, and they were physically men. I mean, men. And that's one thing I do remember about him. And I was nervous. I got in the game like, man, this kid, I shouldn't say kid, but this guy, defender. I mean, I was nervous to bring the ball up the floor, kind of thing. Because of their reputation going in. Yeah, they're good players. My goodness, good players.
Yeah. Well, the next year is going to be your year, and you graduate 4 starters that year. Did you guys think coming back for your senior year, you guys would have a good team?
We did. We weren't really big. Yeah, when we say big, 6'4", 6'5". Buddy Johnson was 6'4", 6'5". Johns. R. Johns, he was 6'4", 6'5", Purcell Johns, yeah. So we were a little small. We were very, very guard oriented, and we were very fast paced. We had a lot of good guards. Again, Kevin Trussell was one, Rick Ramey, and my mind draws a blank to the other guys, Ronnie Anderson, those guys. But we thought we could have a run at the state. The biggest thing for us was make sure we win the city title. That was big here against PH. And typically it was against PH between the 2 city schools who owned the Roanoke Valley District Championship, and then that took you on to the states. That was such a big thing for the city and for the school. We were about that more so than anything. I guess you look at it as one thing at a time. Yeah, but yeah, we weren't sure we could get back to the state. Personally speaking, but I reflect on it now.
Yeah, I think we probably had, and we probably played into what the papers would say, the best possible team was probably our junior year, as far as winning the states and get to the states because of the personnel we had. And although we didn't, because that's what you read, but I think that's not what we believe. But we were so talented. Again, going back to that, again, we didn't non-starters. We didn't start a high school basketball till senior year. I mean, you think about that. I mean, 1 year of starting, and then hopefully the success that we had. But again, guard oriented, and again, Patrick Henry. I think we played those guys 5 times that year, 2 regular season regionals. Because they won a regional, then you play again. So it was a lot of, so it was big in the essence of who owns the state, the city title, so to speak, or the area for us at that time.
Yeah, GW-Danville was a nemesis to get
Yeah.
to another level. And I think you alluded to that in your notes about GW-Danville. Very, very talented. That area was a very talented area. Had a good reputation of players coming out of there.
And I think one thing you have to remember is the 3-point line came in the year after you guys left. If you guys would have had a 3-point line, it may have changed everything because you would have had 2 major 3-point threats. And so the game expanded after that. I mean, maybe it took some time for people to really get comfortable with 3-pointers in their offense, but that would have really helped you guys out.
No question.
Yeah, but at least you had it in college. So that Danville team, they had Herman Moore, played in the NFL. Obviously, I think maybe even a Hall of Fame nominee. I'm not sure about that.
I believe so.
Yeah, then you got Tim Glass was a nice guard. I knew they had the coach's son that shot the ball a lot. I remember he shot the ball a lot. I'm like, you got a lot of players there, son.
Johnson.
I can't think of his name. His last name was Johnson.
Johnson.
So, and they beat you guys in the regional final. The winner was going to go to state. Do you guys remember that game at all?
Oh yeah, I remember the game. Of course, we didn't, at the time, we knew of Herman Moore. Of course, he was a long fellow, athletic. I mean, blocking shots. Probably dunked on us. We at that time, we didn't. In this area, we have a guy dunking the basketball on a consistent basis at all times. So when we, go against someone that is athletic teams that we had against the GW team, we knew that this team was very athletic. Get up and down the floor, matched very well of our style of play. We probably ran out of gas in certain instances, but Herman was, exceptional. He probably could play college basketball as well if he wanted to at the time. And of course, about his career at UVA and moving on to the Lions and all. But heck of a team.
Did GW-Danville end up winning that year?
No, they
I think Booker was on 4, but I don't think they quite won it. But they were capable of winning it though.
Booker T won it again. So Booker T.
That's what it was.
Those guards graduated, and they had another guy named Enrico Campbell and someone else, and they won it again. They had that big guy named Plug Melton, the 6'5".
Plug.
They had him. So, well, anyway, had you guys already signed with VMI before that, or how much did you guys average your senior year? And all of a sudden, did you guys become big prospects?
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, as players, I dream, play Division I basketball. You see on TV, you look at ACC, we're in ACC country, grew up as a Carolina fan. Our families, mom and dad are from Carolina area. So Carolina basketball was kind of in the blood, so to speak. So the goal was to play Division I basketball, and not going together. We didn't think that would be in the plan. At that time, again, we're talking about travel basketball. We got on a team. We fortunately get on a team here locally in local stars that combination of ours.
Well, hold on. I don't mean to interrupt. We did have a good friend of the family who my older brother grew up with, and you're familiar with the name Steve Robinson. Steve Robinson went up going, coached with Roy Williams for a long time. He was at Radford University, and he noticed our talent. Our first scholarship offer was from Radford University, our 10th grade year, and they wanted us to come together, go there together in our 10th grade. So we were offered scholarship from Radford very early on, but that was kind of part of our biggest offer at the time. And for some reason, we didn't accept it. I guess we felt like, like anybody else, let's see what else we can generate in terms of schools. And we waited, and we had a big AAU after our senior year. It really picked up afterwards. We went down to Virginia Beach area and actually competed against the team was Alonzo Mourning, J.R. Reed, Mark Cook, Terry Kirby. They had a squad, and the winner of the game was going to go to the Nationals down in Orlando. But we played very, very well against those guys. Prior to that, we played against guys at Lee up in Stanton. Walker Lambiot and Kevin Madden were on that team, and we competed and did play very, very well. And I think the word got out in a short period of time, and then all of a sudden we had several schools come at us in the late signing period area, April, May-ish. And one school offered us at that time, again, was VMI offers both of us at the same time. And it was and the quick story was when the assistant coach came to visit with us, Kevin Snyder is his name. Kevin Snyder
Jeff
played
Snyder.
it. I mean, Jeff Snyder. Jeff Snyder played at Virginia Tech. When he came in the door, my dad looked at him and they looked at each other and said, Jeff, Mr. Williams? They knew each other when my dad was back in Charlottesville area coaching. So they knew each other. So the instant relationship from that. And then my dad said, okay, sons, we'll sit that scholarship on the mantle, let it sit there for a couple of days and you guys decide what you're going to do. So, and then that's the history from there.
Well, you know, Julian, we interrupt each other, trying to fill each other's voices and all. So he's telling the story, but it's not as good as I wanted to tell it. But, you know, well, what my dad really said, you know, there was one scholarship Ramon was offered at Radford. VMI was offering me a scholarship. And my dad asked Jeff at the time, said, can you take both of the boys? He said, no, coach, let me go back and talk to the staff and see. So about a week later, he called up and said, coach, we'll take both. And then Joe Cantafio didn't recruit us at all. So he don't know what price, 2 twins, what we get, 2 for 1, maybe that might be a good deal, 2 for 1. And so when he called back, he said, coach, we'll take both of them. And then now you get to where Raymond said, my dad said, let's set the scholarships on the mantle and wait. And I can still remember very clearly eating dinner. About a week later, we sitting at the table, and you know, we were thinking like, we looked at school like, man, what we gonna get ourselves into, you know? Yeah. But my dad, he was a World War II Marine vet, so from a father standpoint, he thought, yeah, this is a good thing for my boys. And what he said, and I still clearly sitting here like I'm sitting here at the table now, he said, all right, boys, now I hope I don't have to make the decision for you. So I said, well, I guess we want to be in mind. Yeah, so that's how it really happened. And we took scholarship and then everything, you know, from there was a blessing.
It's just amazing thinking if you guys would have gone to Radford and played with Doug Day, you would have had 3 guys shooting 3-pointers at you. I mean, that would have been an awesome
career.
That would be awesome to watch. So, okay, so we think about Lexington. I remember, you know, Washington and Lee is a very conservative school. You know, VMI is a military school. I remember one time I broke down near Lexington on my way to Tech, and I got to this like Lehigh garage. It was a scary place. I walk in this place. I mean, it was like something out of a movie, like you know, Lords of Discipline, something like that. To tell. So, what did you guys feel? I mean, Roanoke's a pretty conservative place, and you guys were used to, you know, being in a town that everyone wasn't progressive. So, I mean, to you guys, like you're going into a conservative place, military discipline. Were you guys intimidated at all by that? Or were you like, well, this is something that we're going to have to do?
You know, somewhat, to be honest with you, yeah. I mean, from the outset, first of all white institution, primarily, you know, 95% or 99% white going in there. And you're coming from high school, predominantly Black. But our transition from that to VMI was lessened because of when we went to elementary school. My mother worked on the other side of town, you know, in the PH area, and that was a predominantly white elementary school. So we were accustomed, I mean, we unknowingly accustomed to, you know, not being the only one in the room, so to speak. Yeah. So when that happened, when we finally made the decision to go to VMI, and that transition, yeah, it was intimidating. It was intimidating. First of all, the military aspect of it, and then just knowing the type of school it was. But we quickly adjusted because of athletics. Athletics is kind of the calming, you know, it's kind of the dominant. It kind of bridges things when you think about it. Now, we just happened to do well. You know, we didn't do well at VMI, and my experience may be a little bit different, you know, in terms of how we produced and how well we did. Because, you know, everybody's experience is different. Yeah. Sometimes people look at the star athlete, and we didn't look at ourselves as being star athletes. We just, you know, we just played well. We played well and didn't think of anything of it, really, to be honest with you. People will come to us and say, "What, man, y'all? What do you mean? You know, we're just like you. We're no different than you. We know no better than nobody else." And that's kind of our upbringing was. Now, our brothers let us know that from the outset. We had 3 older brothers. hand-me-downs and you can work for this, you're not better than this, you're gonna have to work for what you do. So that's kind of our attitude going into VMI was. And VMI to me is a hard work school, hard work. Not necessarily 3.0, 3.9 guy is what it takes, or 1,500. It could be the average, but the average student can succeed there. Yeah, your own work, but it's just one of those hard work. You had to grind. You had to grind.
That kind of brings the best out of you if you allow it to. I mean, I think that's what the environment really taught. We had the academic stresses, athletic stresses, and then the military environment in itself. So we always say the three-legged stool that we had to kind of challenge ourselves with, and that really just kind of brought what you thought you didn't have in you to make it through. Kind of things we had to do. The rat line, you heard that term, being a rat at VMI. That's your freshman year. You kind of go through we kind of compare it to as a initiation boot camp type thing, but it's a little longer than the normal boot camp. But the experience taught about yourself, your inner self that I can do it, I can finish it, I want to finish what I started, type thing. So
it took away a lot of distractions. Yeah, at the time we had no women, wearing uniform. I didn't have to worry about what I needed to wear every day. Laundry was washed every Monday. I didn't have to wash my clothes. So there were some advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
Comparatively speaking.
Well, we were talking about Richard Morgan earlier. Like at UVA, the athletes just walk around. The women, I mean, they just love the athletes. So at VMI, that's one of those advantages you weren't able to really take advantage of, I guess, huh?
Right. And probably a good thing.
I don't know if I made it through school, but the distractions. Yeah. But we try to call Richard and say, "Hey, Richard, we're coming up. Yeah. Come on up, guys. Let's hang out a little bit." So
we did do that.
Yeah, we did do that.
One thing that Ryan Kenna told me, he was on a podcast with a bunch of Lewis now high school players. He said that when he was at VMI, he took up golf. He was a good golfer anyway. Matter of fact, he's a golf coach now. But at least it got him away from like the strict discipline. The fact that he played basketball during the year, during the winter, and then he played golf in the spring or fall, I think. But it was just nice to have a different schedule than everybody else.
You're right. And that was kind of your environment. Once you kind of got to your sport or to your specialty, it did take away the stresses of just VMI itself. And I remember I coached Ryan, both brothers, the twins, when I was there as a coach. And of course, they fascinated me because them guys look so much alike. I'm like, my goodness, I can only imagine they were not looking alike. I'm looking at these guys like, golly. But he's right. You kind of whatever our specialty was basketball, and that helped us get through VMI.
And that would have been nice. Now, what I know now, as far as picking up the game of golf, it'd been nice if I would maybe done what they did and they got my game on. Although I don't play any golf, but that's kind of the thing of I'm in banking. So I say, hey man, you're not golfing. I mean, that's like network. I said, yeah, I drive the cart. Let me drive the cart.
Exactly.
But that's my next avenue.
I'll meet you in the clubhouse and we'll get a beer after you guys.
Exactly. Right.
Well, let's get to basketball. And Keith wanted me to watch a video of you guys playing. I guess there's a great game on video on YouTube. You guys in NC State, a high scoring game. But I'm not sure if that's the big upset, because your sophomore year, the first year, you got off to a kind of a slow start in terms of your scoring potential. But your second year, you both were there, both in double figures, and you could tell you got comfortable in the conference. And then in the postseason, you guys knocked out East Tennessee State out of the conference tournament, and that was 4 years in a row. Afterwards, they won the tournament and they got to the NCAA all 4 years in a row.
I know.
Yeah. So do you remember that game when you guys beat them in the tournament?
Oh yeah, it was our sophomore year, his freshman year.
Yeah.
They were good. I mean, golly, they had a talented team. Greg Dennis and himself, Calvin Talford, talented team. Marty Story, and during the year, I think we may have split during the year, but they were just, they're going good because the Jennings and Mr. Jennings, just like back in the parks. If it was a good player over at such a park, we're gonna go over there and find who it is. We're gonna challenge this guy. So he was one of them guys. You know how it is. When you're competitive, we wanted to go at them, and we were fortunate. We played really, really well that game, and ended up beating them. And then in the championship, we ended up playing UT Chattanooga, who was a really, really good team, and they may have gone to the tournament maybe the year or two prior to that. But anyway, they were in our way to get to the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, we didn't beat them. But you're right. East Tennessee State was a team that we had to get through to get to where we wanted to go.
Every year, they were kind of the one.
Yeah, we get to.
Like, man, rather play them.
Well, what is it about Mr. Jennings and Calvin Talford? Now, Calvin Talford is like one of these playground legends. Like we started this group for Northern Virginia basketball player, but somehow the conversation always came back to Calvin Talford, which he's from Castlewood. You know, that's about as far away from Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
What is it about this guy? I mean, he was an unbelievable athlete, unbelievable player, and almost no one really, unless you're from around here, Virginia, knows who this guy is.
You're right. That's the mistake about that. Came from a very, very small area. I think it was drafted baseball wise out of high school for the pros, and ended up choosing going to basketball. But yeah, he was that name that we heard as well. Never saw him until we got to college. You heard him like Calvin Talford. All of a sudden we see him like, good gracious, jumping out of the gym and all that. Surprising with East Tennessee State when you think about it, with the talent that he had.
Yeah, but it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. This southwestern part of the state of Virginia, as we felt, not respected, so to speak, of the talent. But I think from that, once we got to school, so we excelled. Yeah. So then it's like, man, these guys did well at VMI or Talford at East Tennessee State. There's something about that southwestern part of the state that we probably need to recruit a little more. So I think that's probably, from that, it just blossomed that we did. We kind of showed it on the next level of what maybe some big schools may have missed, so to speak.
George Lynch said the same thing, and it's crazy to think he would have to go anywhere to get recruited, because I saw him as a young guy, and I knew this guy was the real deal. He said he felt like he had to transfer to Flint Hill if he wanted to play in the ACC. He said he felt like he wasn't going to get enough respect if he stayed in Roanoke.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's where that comes from. Had we took a different route to maybe do that, maybe would we have gone to take a prep year? I don't know. We just weren't that we were kind of loyal to the organization that we were part of, or to the high school. That's just for us. That was for us. And we just like you said, in hindsight, like, man, I had one more year, but things could have been different. But we're the path that we took, we're happy with.
Well, at that time, and it was uncommon that a player would leave, go to prep, or leave their junior during that year. Now it's prevalent, so it's different. It's just that the era of what was probably thought of at that time. If you left the school, like what's going on here? Is there disloyal, or is we want to be respected and have the exposure of big boys, so the colleges to come see our talent. But there's the ways of trying to provide that, to reach out. Hopefully other coaches are speaking up for our area.
Yeah, I think in Lynch's case, I mean, just him going against players his size in the competition, love the quality of the competition was great for him. Proved that he could play in North Carolina. If he stayed at PH, I think he would still maybe have gone to Carolina, but that just solidified it by going to a bigger school like that. Yeah,
he proved what we already knew.
He'll be a pro. Yeah.
Do the kids nowadays in Roanoke, do they go to Roanoke Catholic or Oak Hill, or do the best players stay in public school in Roanoke these days?
For the most part, they're staying here. You may have some go Hargrave. Hargrave was one. Roanoke Catholic has some talented folks, but they don't necessarily recruit the city kids that much. But they have kids have transitioned from the city school to a Roanoke Catholic. Not to my knowledge, not as many. There have been some in terms of going like a Hargrave and the prep schools that route to as another year, but in recent times, no.
And you guys, the three-pointer came in your freshman year. No, the three-pointer was already there when you got to college. You had 4 years of the three-pointer. How long did it take you guys?
It was our first year. It was our first year. Yeah.
How long did it take you guys to adjust to the three-pointer? Was it like this is awesome? Was it right away, or did you have to adjust a little bit to the three-point shot?
Be honest with you, we had to adjust to it. We never thought, that being when Percy, our sophomore years when we Pop took advantage of it because when Percy came in, coach realized that's when we went to a 3-guard lineup. Although we were small, and I'm small forward at 6'2", you know, Raymond at 2 guard and Percy at the 1 guard. So that's when we kind of realized, you know, the spacing of it, you know, understanding the dynamics of the floor from a coach standpoint. Because I think back in the day, you know, it's pounded inside to the post player. There's a half court style game to it. So the pace wasn't there. And then by our junior year, then we realized, man, we don't shoot this thing. You know, so the 3-point line is where we had to take advantage of. But it really probably took 2 years. By the time we kind of took advantage of what the importance of what the 3-point line provided, what the opportunity really what the impact of the game it was to the game it was.
So what was Coach Cantafio like? I mean, yeah, it's when you're at a school like VMI, you are restrained like you are at West Point and other places by the other obligations that players have. And there are going to be some urban players that are interested in that kind of lifestyle. So, you know, your expectations for a coach at VMI are going to be different than a coach at some places. So to be fair, but what kind of coach was he? What did you guys learn from him?
He was feisty. He got a little Italian blood in him. We used to call him Mini DeVito, you know. But no, he was a good coach. We had a good experience with him. We had he was a guard himself. I think he played at Scranton University there in Scranton, PA. Well, he's from Scranton, PA, I should say. But he played at a small school. So I think he understood, and he coached at DeMatha. You know, he coached at DeMatha under Morgan Wooten. So he understood the guard play. And he really, once we, like I said, now I didn't play 7, 8 games my freshman year. He was the coach. No, I just didn't deserve to play. According to him, you know, I'm like, no, I deserve to play. But no, according to him, we didn't deserve to play. But I think once we understood that 3-point line and it expanded our game, all of a sudden he was a guards coach. He was a guards coach. You know, everything went through. I guess everything went through us. I guess, but he was fiery. You know, he respected a family. He was a family guy. You know, his wife and kids were born there, and we got to know them as when they were born there, and still know them to this day. Keep in touch with him now. He lives in the Richmond area, but we thought we had a good experience with him.
So after college, with VMI, I guess you could take a military appointment if you want. You guys chose not to, and you both got into the coaching. Damon eventually got into officiating. Damon, I'm sorry, and Ramon, you coach on many staffs, different environments. You're in the city, you're in the country, you're big schools, small schools, a lot of different coaches. Yeah. So what was your next career path, and how'd you what was those decisions that you had to make, and how'd you handle those decision points?
Well, you know, it's interesting. When we first got out of college, we wanted to aspire to play professionally, and that was our goal. And when we, in the interim, we came back to Roanoke and worked for an alumnus here in the Roanoke-area. And what he's told us is that, you know what, I know you guys want to aspire to be professional athletes, blah, 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 but while you're here, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to treat you like you're going to be here permanently. So it got really good to us. It was a good job. And we did have a chance to kind of sniff a little bit of some professional basketball. But in the long run, we were better off, making the decisions we made in terms of career-wise. So we didn't go into coaching right away. We worked for an alumnus. It was a recycling company at the time. He ended up helping us get started our own business at an early start. Probably 2 years out of college, we had our own business, trucking company. And then, things changed, and all of a sudden, we were coaching. Our first coaching job was with Charlie Morgan and Richard Morgan. We're all together on the same staff at Salem High School. Our first year, we went to the regionals, I think. And then we got a phone call in the fall of '93. And Joe Cantafio, this is the story Cantafio says, whoever answers the phone first, he's going to offer the job. I just have to answer the phone first.
It doesn't matter which one.
Well, I just have to answer the phone. And he offered the job. Hey, this is Ramon. Hey, you think about getting into coaching? We thought about it because our dad was a long-time coach. for different sports in high school. And that's how we got into coaching. Started at Salem High School. I went to VMI, and having the same year, day one gets a call from the high school in Lexington and coaches at the Roberts County High School in Lexington. So we were both back to Lexington the same year coaching. And that's how we got started. And I hadn't stayed with it. I stayed with it for, man, it's hard to believe, over 20 years. Different stops, different very various stops along the way.
And Damon, you got into banking, which you still do today, and you also officiate basketball.
Yeah, definitely. Again, the story of being in the coaching ranks, the high school. I was at the gym watching VMI's practices, and you know what, I like to get into college as well. So opportunity came about, went to Western Carolina. So we coached against each other the first, I guess, two years of there.
About 2-3
years. And I went, I think at the time the conference changed from north to south or something like that. So we played each other once. And so I can't claim that I was 1-0 against Ray when we played, VMI when they came down to Western Carolina at the time. So, I got out of coaching, around, the changes, like any other universities, and a lot of it's depending on the records and things like that. So it kind of pushed me out of the coaching ranks. I was trying to get back in, but it was wasn't a level that I could be comfortable with, was married and so forth, and moving and all this kind of thing. Not like it is today. But you mentioned officiating. I got into officiating. I wanted to be around the game. I didn't know anything about officiating. I was at a high school dunk contest. I was a judge watching high school dunk contest. And so a guy that refereed me in high school, he said, "Hey, man, you ever thought about getting into officiating?" I said, "Officiating? Man, guys, people looking at you and all this kind of stuff." I said, "No, I never thought about it. You got to take a think of that. I think you enjoy it." I said, "You know what? I tried." Fell in love with it. And I'm sure from your experience, you get the bug, so to speak, and it really has done well for me. I've been officiating. I got into it late, as I tell folks. I got into it late. Going from the high. I still tingle with the high school level, but majority of my officiating now is in college, major college basketball. So I've been fortunate. Got into the NBA system. I did some development league a couple years in professional basketball. So love it. Keeps me around the game. It's fun to watch. I mean, it's just as an athlete, you want to have some type of connection to it. And not if you can play it, but this here gives me a good connection to the game.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Raymond, quickly tell us a little bit about some of your stops. I know you were at I think you were at Ohio with the Georgetown NCAA win. That must have been a tremendous moment. And then I know you had a UNC overtime loss in the tournament as well. Tell us a little bit about those high points in your coaching career.
Yeah, you know what? My highlight, one of the highlights prior to that one was when I was at Richmond. I coached at VMI for 9 years. Next stop was at Jerry Wainwright at University of Richmond. And we got an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Never experienced it. Always watched it on TV, as a player, like, man, I love to be in that spot. And sure enough, we were watching the TV, and we had a heck of a year. We beat Kansas during that year, blah, 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 and got an at-large bid. So that was my first experience in terms of the NCAA tournament. So that was thrill. Long story short, move on to DePaul, come back to Ohio, and John Gross was the coach there. And we win our conference tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. Win 4 games straight, unheard of at that time. 4 games straight, you can never do it, and we did it. And we played Georgetown, and it just a thrill because, you're a big fan of John Thompson and the players that played there, and we ended up knocking them off. And, now I got the feeling of, man, okay, yeah, man, sure. I've been 2 tournaments already. Hey, I feel pretty good. And we won one. And sure enough, 2 years later, we get from Ohio, win the conference tournament again. We end up beating University of Michigan in the first round. Down in Tennessee, and then our second round game were in St. Louis, where we played for the Sweet 16. We ended up beating University of South Florida. So those were our 2 first round games, and then, like you said, we had to go against the almighty Carolina team. And I think they won it that year. I believe they won the championship that year, 2010, I believe. Heck of a game. I mean, we led, probably 95% of the game throughout. And two players, I think you mentioned the two, my mind draws a blank.
Zeller and Barnes.
Yeah, Zeller, Barnes. Yeah, Zeller and Barnes. Zeller, we knew was a big beast to deal with. And we double team. But Barnes didn't have a great game, at least from the outset. He didn't have a great game. He struggled. And that was in our favor. We double team, closed out on him quick. And sure enough, probably around about the 5 or 6 minute mark, and he struggled. And it's also, he got over it and hit a three. Then that Carolina crowd, we were up by 5. He hits the 3, brings it to 2. And that crowd, you hear the crowd. I couldn't hear myself speak. A good friend of ours, they helped raise us. That shouldn't have raised us. Changed our diaper with Steve Robinson on the other side with Carolina at the time.
And I think Raymond took a peek down and looked on the other end.
Yeah, he was nervous. He was nervous. He kind of pointed that finger like, yeah, I remember I changed your diapers back down there. Don't try, But we, it was a great experience. Great experience. Love to have done it as a player, but was fortunate enough to be able to do it as a coach. And not many people get to experience that. Yeah. And we ended up going to overtime, lost in overtime by 2 or 3 points. And
had a chance to win it.
Yeah, had a chance to win it. Yeah, we did. We really, really did. A lot of people talk about that game. A lot of people talk about that game when I go back to Ohio. Ohio University, great school. One of the largest besides Ohio State, one of the largest universities in Ohio. Yeah. Great campus, small, rural kind of area, but it's a great campus. And those fans are unbelievable. Yeah. And but from my standpoint as a coach, and it's great to come back and be able to speak of that. Something that helps on, when I talk about basketball and try to explain something, that kind of gives you some legitimacy. I think he knows what we're talking about. He's been there, he's been to such and such. So I do know what I'm talking about a little bit at least, I think. Exactly. But now, great experience. That's probably my highlights of my career.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. So Damon, when Ramon's coaching, and you're a twin, and you guys have always been together. Are you living those games to him? Are you guys talking every night? Are you involved when he's coaching?
Oh yeah. I tell you, and just bring back how we grew up. My mom. My mom, was one of 14, 7 brothers, 7 sisters. So she knew about the competitiveness, sharing, and so forth. And I think what she kind of instilled is in always support each other. No matter what's going on, you support each other. And so that's what I was living through. I was out of coaching at the time, but I knew a lot of the guys. I still would go to the Final Four with Raymond. We would go, experience that. And for me, living through him, I said, man, finally got to the tournament. As a player, didn't make it, but as a player, as a coach, lived through that, trying to get to the game, to be there live, to experience what he's trying to experience as well. Again, talking every night, hey, man, what's the game plan? Well, you got this big kid, this element. Well, I know. How you gonna stop him? So going through all that, and it just kind of brought me back that I was part of the staff as well.
But we played many tricks now. Trust me, he's been to all the places I've been. He's been there and walked in as the coach, and I kind of sit back. Yeah, the players, mingling with them just like it was me. And we've had some good times now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun for you. I'm sure the other side is always laughing, huh? Well, let's talk a little bit about Twin Hoops. It's your nonprofit, and I know I read somewhere that you took over from another similar nonprofit that was in Roanoke, and you guys created your own vehicle to give back. You want to tell us a little bit about Twin Hoops?
Yes, our Twin Hoops started, not too far along after our college days. It started as coaches. In '96 we started. But it kind of goes back. I was thinking about this. We had a ESPN piece with Robin Roberts our senior year, and she asked us, "What would you guys like to do? What y'all guys stay around the game?" I said, "We'd like to go in business together. We don't know what it is, but we'd like to do something together." So it kind of reminds me of that, of how we kind of evolved to that, and it really took advantage of what our skills and talents were at the time and try to give back. And so we grew up here in Roanoke, going to a camp called CORD. Community Organization for Research and Development. Lady at the time, Mrs. Ross, ran this camp 2 weeks at a time, 5 days a week for 2 weeks for $20. Totally unheard of. And everybody, who's who they could play basketball, the Lynches, Blair, Covington, Reddicks, they could play or athlete went through this camp. And then that was our summer camp. You know, unlike now, you got camps at universities and things like that. So we grew up going through that camp probably about from 7 years old, probably up to about 14, 15. And then we went to college and all. When we get back, we're out of college. And then we were around about 96 or so. At the time, the court camp, you know, was still going, but not as flourishing as it was before. We talked to Miss Ross, and Miss Ross, you know what? When we started our camp, Twin Hoops, we would like to maybe, because it's been good to us, can we incorporate it? So we kind of incorporated the name with our name, Twin Hoops Court Camp. So that's kind of how they transitioned over to us. And she was so thrilled with that. You know, we would do it right and so forth. So I know it's in good hands. You know, at least it's two of you thinking versus one. But we carried it on. We started a nonprofit organization, Youth Sports Inc., to be able to and I think from our standpoint was really trying to give back what you hear people say, or athletes say, give back what others have done for us. You can't take it with you. Your talents, share, share what you've learned. You can have some other kid get to some goals that they're trying to do, and maybe some guidance along the way as well. I think we get that a lot from our mom and dad, you know, been educators in that respect, and then dad been a coach. And then our coaching experience, you know, from coaching experience, you're recruiting kids to come to your school, here the opportunities are for you. Athletics is part of it, but at the same time, you know, if you take these tools and learn, it can take you further. So we try to apply that same type of mentality approach to our camp, our basketball camp. We've been doing it now, 25, this will be our 26th year. During our camp, we have about 200 kids come through during the summertime, and it's just amazing that, as we said, I always say and jokingly say, I guess we'll do another year because they still want us around because kids are still coming. So we enjoy that piece of it. You know, it gives an opportunity to get on the court, touch the basketball, really. You know, I don't play competitively, but at least I can shoot a couple free throws and all that kind of stuff, maybe three-pointer. And so that's been a good avenue for us in that respect. And we trying to take another level, you know, with travel basketball, incorporate with that. We got some teams that kind of come from that group. We got there's some talented kids here in this Roanoke area, young talented kids, and we try to do everything we can. I think people did it for us. If there's opportunity or a coach, you know, we got some guys in high school that we think they have some talent. We're gonna reach out to some of our contacts and say, hey, look, you need to take a look at these kids here and try to have an opportunity for some guys, some kids here in our hometown. So that's been a blessing for us.
Yeah.
Blessing.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, this has been great. It's funny. You guys were unbelievable basketball players. And, you know, it was an unlikely story because you kind of came out of nowhere, even though Fit pointed you out when you were young. But you guys went to the highest level. I think at some point you guys were both on the three-pointer, all-time three-pointers list and an all-time leading siblings list and all these great accomplishments. But you're two humble dudes, successful guys, just you know, credit to your parents and your coaches and all your teammates. So I'm really glad you decided to do this. I'd love to keep in touch. Maybe if you guys are ever in the DC area, you know, get some coffee or lunch, or if I'm down there, I wouldn't be surprised if I have a kid going to tech one of these days. So
I'm sure you will.
Let us know. We'll be glad to get together, and then we vice versa when we come that way. We'll do the same. We'll reach out.
Yeah, I would love to meet you guys in person, man. This has been a lot of fun, and you know, I don't know too much about Roanoke, but I've learned a lot from you and Doug, and also from George, and it's been great. I've always admired the style of play of kids from Roanoke. Just hard-nosed kids play hard. They don't play with attitude, but they play physical.
That's right.
You know, and I admired you guys from afar. I'm just really glad you're able to do this.
We appreciate you reaching out. We've ever since you ran the one piece about the twins who can identify these two guys, and you know, it's interesting because sometimes you don't get the history throughout the state. And not saying we're history, but sometimes you want to know other players. And we've been fans of it ever since. So we've been enjoying it. You've been doing
great. Well, we appreciate you participating, and it's good to have you on board.
So,
you know, we got, you know, at one point in time, I think a lot of coaches recognize Roanoke being an area where they get great shooters. Obviously, you know, Doug Day, us, Curtis Staples, J.J. Riddick, all
Troy Daniels.
Troy Daniels.
When you think about shooting.
Yeah.
Some of the shooters.
One of the best shooters out of the country come from right here.
come from out of this area.
When you think
It's
about it.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So we hopefully we can get a couple come through our camp and maybe have some more guys coming out of this area at the same.
No, exactly. And then maybe you guys get some of that, what's that revenue money called? It called,
Residual.
yeah, but they have that NID or what's that? What's that?
Well,
Everyone's
with
called?
the coaches, with the players.
The likeness, the likeness
The
thing.
likeness.
Oh, yeah.
NIL. Maybe you guys get some
NIL, there
NIL
you
money
go.
from.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, look, I really enjoyed it. Let's keep in touch and be safe with COVID.
We'll
Thank
do
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
Take care now.
Likewise. Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Okay, you too, man. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.